be good to have a countdown sometimes, wouldn't it? Right, Dave. Are we live? Are we live, David?
I think we're live. Yeah, I think so.
So let's check.
Any minute now, someone's going to pop up, and we're still going to be going. Are we live? Are we live?
I know. I will. Let's just double check, mate. Right, I think.
Yeah, we're live, mate. Yeah. We are live.
Lovely, jubbly. Hey everyone. It's Andy and Dave on another Tuesday tune-in. Great to see there's a few people joining. Hey, Mark. If you are joining us, guys, as always, do drop in the comments who's on, just so me and Dave can see who's joining in on the Q&A today.
Yeah,
on this wonderfully sunny Tuesday afternoon. Hey, Ruth. Hey, Paul, James, Shona, Kim, Laura, Amanda, another Mark Beecroft, who takes some fantastic pictures. Mark, I've been seeing your pictures. Julie, great stuff. Yeah, heaps of people joining us. Jackie, Lee, Joel. As always, some of the regulars. See some newbies on here as well. But Dave,
what's
going on today?
What's that? Well, I've taken some long-awaited leave, but I'm never going to miss a Tuesday tune-in.
Commitment, I like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, commitment. But no, other than that, no, mate, not much. Chilling, riding my bike. Gonna have a haircut. That's about it.
Yeah, mate, it looks fine. It looks fine. Honestly, the Prince look is good. Trust me.
Oh yeah.
Great stuff. No, nice to have you on, Dave, as always. And yeah, today, because Lauren's off this week as well. Some of the Yetis taking some well-needed time off. It's been a busy period for us. So our wonderful Fee, the Bimblin Yeti, is on the phones, is on the comments today. So she'll be saying hello if you do see anyone commenting and sharing some stuff with you. But right, yeah, great stuff. Loads of people joining us now. Wicked, yeah. Hey, Laura, Dewi, Mick, as always. Ramona's on. Awesome. Yeah. You actually caught this week.
It's in Ramona's diary. I've seen it. I've seen the evidence that it's value. Inspect this building, inspect that building. Tuesday tune in. Write a report about something.
Lee was reminded that you're 4 pints in debt, Dave. So we need to tally that in the office somewhere. This is Dave's.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Good. Lee, thanks for keeping count for that, mate. Because brilliant. Alan, no worries, mate. No worries. Alan has got his certificate and medal. Great stuff. Alan came with us to Everest Base Camp in what seems like a long time ago now, back at the end of 2019.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely had an awesome time. And yeah, it's obviously taken a while, with our good friend COVID but glad you got it now, Alan. And, well deserved, mate. Well done.
Yeah, literally. I'm happy as well because I had to carry those to the post office.
Yeah, well done, Dave. But right, let's crack on into the episode then. Dave, today, what's it about?
So, well, today it's sort of something we've touched on quite lightly. It's a subject that we definitely, we don't like to pass over. We like to sort of give a full account of everything. But no, today we're going to talk about, we always talk about EBC. We go to EBC, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to go to EBC. And generally speaking, if you're going to go to EBC via any other route, you're going to go over what we term and what is termed the high passes. And we get a lot of questions about these high passes because obviously they're high altitude, they're in remote regions. Sometimes there can be bad weather. So there's a lot more to it than perhaps just sticking to the standard route. So today we're going to talk about all the different passes that you can get. Also touch on some other passes in some other areas of the world as well. And, what type of boots do you need to go over Kongma? Will I, pass out going over Cho La? There's lots of things that we can talk about. So yeah.
Sounds like a song.
Yeah.
Very good, Dave. Very good. Yeah, exactly. Although we do regularly talk about Kili and Everest Base Camp and Tubkal Machu Picchu, the high passes sometimes get a little bit left out. So yeah, we wanted to sort of tackle those today because they're part of some of the high passes we do, especially the ones in the Everest region. You've got Renjo La, Cho La, Kongma La. They're all significant passes. Over 5,000 meters. So, they're not to be taken lightly. But, we do get some people that ask a couple of questions like, okay, it's my first time at high altitude. Will I be able to do Cho La? Am I fit enough? What experience do I need to take on these high passes? And it's certainly one thing we've discussed internally, and if you've been on any of these lives, we always like to say it does come down to the individual. If you want to do it, altitude is essentially the first time you go to altitude is the same, essentially, because of the same acclimatization process.
Yeah.
But so it doesn't matter where you go to altitude. If you go to Everest Base Camp, you go over a high pass. That being said, a lot of the high passes are quite relentless. You're talking 2-3 hours of ascent, over 4,500 meters and then over 5. So, they're not to be taken lightly, but in terms of what experience you would need, we've had first timers tackle these and they've done fine. Okay. They're into their walking, they're relatively fit, but as we always talk about, they're resilient up here, and they go there and they have an awesome time. So I think certainly just to tackle that one first, because it is something that comes up, is that any high pass that we do, they're not summits, so a little bit different, in terms of you're going through, a mountain pass, but some of them are just as good as any of the other places we do. They're another X on a map that we're going over, and some of them are. We get feedback of like, oh yeah, going over Cho La Pass was one of the best experiences we've had. Obviously, and these are people going to Everest Base Camp, and they enjoyed Cho La rather than Everest Base Camp. I mean, everyone takes different things from it. And so we thought, right, let's talk about passes today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of those as well. Like, not every pass is, although they tend, if you're going to do the 3 passes trip over in Nepal, you're going to go over 3 different passes. So just to clarify, that'll be Cho La, Renjo La, and Kongma La. I'm assuming La means pass. And so they tend to sort of go up in altitude. But it's a lot of people that have done them sort of report back differently. We had one group I know when I was in Nepal, and Andy, you were in April 2019. There's a great guy, Alan Payne, who was like, I think he was 70 when he did it, definitely late 60s. And I was chatting to their group, like, which pass was the toughest? And they were like, Cho La was by far the toughest. And then another one would be like, no, Renjo La was a killer, So it all depends. A lot of it is down to the individual. But I think all of those guys, it was their first time at altitude. And they varied wildly in their sort of fitness levels and age and things like that. So yeah, it can be one of those things where it depends on the individual. Sometimes people will want to go and do EBC by the classic route first, get a taste for altitude, get a taste for Nepal, and then maybe go back and do it, and do more of the same and do the high passes and do more exploring. Other people, they want to go, for the most hardcore right off the bat, and we've had people go to Island Peak their first time at altitude. They've never been on a skiing holiday, and they summit Island Peak. So it is a large part of it is mental, but that doesn't mean that they're not physically tough as well, because, it's almost guaranteed it's going to be high. Well, it is guaranteed it's going to be high. It's almost guaranteed it's going to be cold. And sometimes you might, your guide might decide to kind of rope you, so you all kind of stay together. Other times you might have to wear crampons in order to get up those, just, nothing technical, but in terms of grip and things. So, they are very exciting.
Yeah, nice, Dave. And yeah, you've hit on a couple of good points there, because a couple of those questions are ones that we had sent in. Yeah, we had heaps of questions coming this morning, guys. Yeah, thanks for pinging those across. I think we got 8 or 9 questions already off the bat. But as always, if you're on the live, don't forget, this is what we hear as well. It's what we're here for. Any questions around any of these trips, anything, do drop in the comments. We know a few comments have come back around the app. If you've had access to the app, I hope you enjoyed it. But any questions around that as well, post it on, and hopefully we can try and help you, use the app. We hope you enjoyed it as well. It's, I say, been working hard behind the scenes on that, and we're trying to release it as much as we can. So I hope you're enjoying the app as much as we hope so. But anyway, yes. So with regards to questions then, Dave, should we start off on the email ones, mate?
Yeah, why not? So I'm assuming, so we've got Fee on the phones today. So yeah, for a slightly different flavor on the messaging. I think I saw Leah say, hello, Lauren. It's actually Fee.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so we've had one message from a chap called Paul.
Yeah.
He says he's doing the Annapurna circuit and the 3 passes this autumn.
Paul is. Hey, Paul.
Yeah, he didn't want to wear a tough boot, as a lot of the terrain should be reasonable ground, and I don't particularly need a lot of ankle support. The lighter weight boots will take the Grivel Ice Master style crampon. Will this be suitable for the odd bit of ice on these treks? So, Paul, yes, it will. So with regards to when we say crampons, when we're referring to the passes, it's not technical climbing. It is literally for grip and grip alone, because sometimes you can get some snowpack, sometimes it might be ice. So what normally happens is that you'll wear a standard hiking boot. It can be an unrated boot, so it doesn't have to be like a B1, B2 or whatever. It can be a normal hiking boot, lightweight, comfortable for you. And the guides can give you these sort of, they're sort of like what's the word I'm thinking of? They fit every type of boot. And quite often they're kind of the chains, you know, that kind of wrap around, and they're like the micro spikes that go around the boot, as opposed to like a proper Grivel sort of crampon. So that's pretty much what you need. If it is needed as well, the guides are more than happy. They'll provide that for you, because it's part of the passes trip as well.
Yeah, because Shona has said a similar thing. Hey, Shona. Awesome as always, mate, to see you on the live around. Will normal boots with micro spikes be okay? And I hope Dave answered that question there in terms of that, because micro spikes do go on to generally some of the lightweight boots, because they are pretty flexible. We use them in the UK. Might be worth getting some practice. Okay, depending on the conditions, especially now as we're coming into the spring. Frustratingly, a lot of the winter, I know all of us have been locked down, but if you can't get any practice beforehand, it doesn't hurt to get some, some time on the spikes, essentially. But they do, and the guys carry it. They're quite lightweight anyway, and in the villages, especially if you go over Cho La, because Cho La can have quite a lot of snow, and then obviously makes it a bit more challenging with regards to the ice underfoot, and it changes every year. Like the very first time I went to base camp before EverTrek started was 5 years ago, and then I wanted to go over Cho La, but it was actually closed at the time. I did go in winter, which is one of the reasons we don't run those trips during winter, is that they're very, very almost always closed during winter because of the amount of snow that's up there, and the conditions, they are quite harsh. I didn't get a chance to go over there myself, back then, which is quite frustrating at the time. I was thinking, I want to go over to the Gokyo Valley. And, but once I got to base camp, which was fantastic in its own right, it's a fantastic achievement anyway. But anyway, just go back to my point with micro spikes and things. They are local if we need to get them. So, yes. So I hope that answered your question, Shona. And the same with Paul as well. I know he's going to Annapurna Circuit, I believe, which also has another one, which is Cho La Pass.
Yep.
Which is one of the higher passes, which was it Cho La? Was it 5416, Dave?
Something like that. Yeah, it's definitely nearly. It's as near as makes a difference, 5,500 meters.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
Yeah, it's a really nice high pass as well, because there is a cairn on top with the flags, the name of the pass and everything like that. So it is an epic one for certain. I mean, I can't personally, I haven't done Cho La, but I can't wait to go over there and do that one, because it's going to be absolutely amazing. Just to touch on altitude, I noticed Andy McNaughton-Jones. How's it going, Andy? Welcome again. We talk about altitude, but do we really mean air pressure difference between sea level and altitude?
Good question, Andy. Love it.
So is the air pressure different in the mountain ranges like EBC, Andes versus standalone mountains like Kili? So I think there's more than one thing at play here. So definitely the air pressure does make a difference. So when you're at Everest Base Camp, for instance, particularly when you're high in altitude, I bought a packet of crisps, I think, from Dingboche, and they were like a bomb ready to go up. They expand like they do in an airplane. So there is an air pressure difference. So with altitude, we know that there's not less oxygen. What happens is that the higher you go, the less of the air pressure, the more dispersed the oxygen is in the atmosphere, and that has the effect of reducing the amount of oxygen that we're able to breathe in. But that's only one sort of effect of going to high altitude. The other effect, obviously, is the difference between air pressures and things. I'm assuming it's the same whenever you go to high altitude. I'll be honest with you, I didn't do the packet of crisps experiment on Kili, but I definitely know when I was in Nepal and I was trekking to Everest Base Camp, you will see things like even eggs. I'll be honest with you, pop an egg, it'll pop, right? Fizzy drinks, packets of crisps, they tend to pop and stuff like that. So there is a difference with air pressure and it expanding and things like that. So,
just going to add into that. And Dave, great explanation around the science behind it. But I suppose the other thing to take into account is weather. because weather determines the sort of ambient pressure around.
Yeah.
We all seen those weather maps with the isobars on there, and especially in mountain regions, they can you can drop really quickly, which drops the ambient pressure around, which essentially then, I mean, they've said, we talk about some of the Everest disasters, the one in 1996
Yeah.
into thin air. I think a lot of you on here would have heard, seen that, heard us talk about it. And they did say that on that mountain, because of the weather front that came in, it had the equivalency of almost raising the height of Everest, by like 500 meters. Seems crazy, but because of the actual pressure difference was that much, because of the low pressure that came in out of nowhere, and then almost had the same impact as increasing the height of the mountain,
Yeah.
which then would reduce again the amount of oxygen the body can actually take.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
I think you have to, if you're looking at different mountain ranges, Andy, and great question, mate. I love these type of questions. Is that you have to take into account sort of locality and the areas. So yeah, is the Andes different than the Himalayas? I'd say it's very similar. And from a science point of view, you are X amount above sea level, but you also have to take into account what's the actual pressure there at that time. Like in Himalayas, notorious for having some sort of snowstorms that can come in out of nowhere at certain times of the year. That's why they do it in the spring, because there's less chance.
Yeah.
But, you're talking monsoon season has always got a lot of snowfall there. So yeah, you have to take into account all of that, and I hope that does it.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. I mean, I remember exactly what you said, and the two most famous disasters on Everest, perhaps, which were 96 and 2006. The same thing happened on 2006, but it wasn't a storm. It was, like you said, an atmospheric low that almost has the effect of bringing space closer to the summit. So the temperature drops across the whole mountain range, and that's the climber David Sharp was effectively caught out in that. I mean, there's a lot more to do with his story, but I remember Woody, one of Russell Bryce's guides on the mountain, gave an explanation as to why it was so cold that night and why it made summiting very difficult and why there was a lot of frostbite. But do you know what it's interesting with regards to is the effect on air pressure at 5,000 meters on Everest the same as it is on Kili? Do you know what? As going forward, Andy, I'm going to do the packet of crisps science experiment, and I will see how much they inflate on each one. But no, good question. Love an altitude chat.
Yeah, definitely. Just coming on a couple of the questions we had before the live. This is from Miriam. Do you carry all your stuff with you while you walk? And how do you deal with fatigue and tiredness? So a couple of questions. Yeah, Miriam, I mean, firstly, just in terms of carrying your stuff, I mean, on any trek that we do, whether it's a high pass, whether it's going to Kili, certain trips that we do, generally you only carry a day pack. So you're talking like your snacks, warm pair of gloves, your water, maybe sort of a jacket to chuck on if it rains. So you don't carry too much, whereas the porters, the guys, or the muleteers, if you're in Toubkal and in Morocco, will carry all the big bags for you, or the yak sometimes in Nepal. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. You don't have to carry all of it. So if you bring in, say, 15 kgs on the Everest Base Camp trek, don't think you've got to be carrying all that all the way, because altitude's challenging, and we like to make it as easy as we possibly can. It's not a race. It's we take our time, and there's no need to make it any harder than it needs to be, essentially. How do you deal with fatigue and tiredness? It's one of those. I think we all deal with it in different ways, don't we? And sometimes it's through experience. Getting out there and doing sort of challenging things, and then feeling tired, feeling fatigued, knowing how your body reacts to that, and how you're able to overcome that. Because you're going to be tired, and you're going to be fatigued, and then it comes down to the, as Dave said a couple of weeks ago, the biggest muscle you need to exercise is the one between your ears. And I think if you can learn, I say learn, maybe the wrong word, or maybe get some experience around dealing with the challenge of a difficult situation, and then seeing how your head reacts and how you can get through that, that'll work. That'll add so much benefit to when you're on these high altitude challenges, because your head's in the right place. Whether you're tired, whether you're fatigued, whether you got a dodgy belly, whether you're just feeling altituded, as we like to call it, you're suffering some altitude issues. Back on Kili, just over 12 months ago, I mean, I didn't suffer any altitude issues, but you know what? I felt knackered on summit night, because I'm not used to hiking during the night. And I had to go back to why I'm there, and come on, you have to use the internal kick up the backside, and that's what got me through it in the end. And it doesn't matter who you are; it can happen differently on any challenge you go on. So yeah, I hope that answered your question a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, one of the big things that I think you can do, I think on the mountain as well, particularly like what Andy was saying there about sort of the mindset, it can make a huge difference. And like Andy was saying on the summit that he was pretty tired. I noticed that it hit me further down, actually on the last 4 hours of the day, where physically I think I was still there, but the fatigue takes its toll and you start to get a bit grumpy. I think, to be honest, food helps, as well, keeping, quite often. Weirdly, I was saying to Andy like 5 minutes before we came and did the live, that I noticed that if I'm feeling a bit grumpy and I'm a bit fed up on a hike, it's almost always because I haven't eaten enough. And eating some food and just like putting some calories and some carbs in my body makes me feel a lot better. And also training beforehand as well, isn't it? And it's all about that preparation. The more you do beforehand, the more you get out of the trip when you're there. And then if you combine, the physical fitness with the mental fitness, you're basically unstoppable, And awesome.
You can do anything with a strong mind. I honestly believe that. But everyone's Everest is different, as we always say.
Yeah, exactly. So, good old Diane Vizakali said,
hey, Diane.
You've got the Garment B1 boots. They have the ridges, the welts that crampons can attach to. Yeah. They'll be more than good. She's asking if they're good enough for things like Tupgal and the mountain training, winter training skills. Yes, they are. They'll be perfectly fine. If they're a B1 boot and you can attach a crampon to them, that's fine. That's sort of the beginning of what you need to do winter mountaineering and do things like Tupgal. Then it all depends then. So whether you go to B2 or B3, technically it's whether the mountain or the pass you're climbing is getting more difficult and more technical and requires mixed terrain, like you climbing on ice and then rock and then snow. Those are 3 different techniques that you use, and you need a stiffer boot. If you're doing Tupgal, winter skills training, the B1 boots will be perfectly fine.
Yeah, 100%. Some boots as well are, you could say I need a B1 for this, and a B2 for this, and a B3 for this. Some of them are pretty, I'd say, versatile. You could get one. You could probably get away with it, Diane, with having a more flexible boot with that sort of C1 crampon, as we like to say. But yeah, as Dave said there, if you can have different boots, it's not going to hurt. But like I've got a pair in the office here, and I think they're the ones I got. I think they're called the Shamo, CHI pronunciation. They're CHAMROZ, I think they're called, something like that. And anyway, they're classed as a B2 boot, but they're really rigid. I can't wait. I bought them for winter, but haven't been able to get out in the mountains over winter. So yeah, with regards to any future winter mountaineering, can't wait to try them. Yeah. See how far we can take them. But nice, Dave. Yeah. Whilst we're on there, actually, I did see a couple of questions drop in from Diane as well. I think I'm just going to pick this up whilst Diane is here, just so I can make sure her question's answered. You mentioned Diane around High Pass for Annapurna Circuit, but not for the Annapurna Base Camp. Yes, that's right. So when it comes to when you go into Annapurna, you pretty much got a direct route to base camp, and then you kind of retrace your steps essentially. Yeah. Whereas the Annapurna Circuit is you're actually walking around the entire massif of Annapurna, which is, I think it's like 4 or 5 actual peaks, summits, but it's classed as the Annapurna Massif. And one of those is you go over Cho La Pass. Yeah. So yeah, it's a longer trip. It's probably a more challenging trip than Annapurna Base Camp. So yeah, I hope that maybe if you're thinking about which one you want to do, it just depends on time. Yeah. Similar to sort of Everest Base Camp, really. If you go into Everest Base Camp and then back, it's shorter than if you go in, say, on the 3 Peaks, 3 Passes route. Yeah. Because that's a sort of 19 days rather than 15. So yeah, it just depends on the time there. But if you've got the time, the Annapurna Circuit is awesome. Yeah.
Sean Lycett's come up with a good one. I should have expected really. If we're going to talk about the high passes, that's really an altitude conversation, isn't it? So it's really interesting. But Sean Lycett says, if you get symptoms of altitude sickness, It's just rehashed. Can you recover while still at altitude? So yes, you can, but it's really, there's only, they say if you get altitude sickness and you've got AMS, there's really only one cure, and that's you need to go descent, descent, descent. However, altitude is manageable if it's recognized early and if the right steps are taken. So, for instance, Namche seems to be a bit of a sticking point. Namche, or the acclimatization day on Namche, you won't see anyone suffer really before then. Only in highly unusual cases, perhaps, but definitely on the sort of acclimatization day at Namche, when you go up to Everest View Hotel, you get to about 3,880 meters. You'll start to notice a few people complaining about the usual things like headache, fatigue, bit of nausea, dizziness, that type of thing. So at that point, we need to say, right, okay, we don't just ignore it. That person's clearly experiencing altitude, so we need to look at what have they drank. Hydration is massively important. If they've underdrank the day before or even that day, that can have an effect. What have they eaten? How have they slept? And then potentially look at, is Diamox something that would really benefit this person? So those are like 4 things right there that we can do immediately to turn it around. And both me and Andy have seen people at Everest View Hotel with their head in their hands, really feeling quite unwell. We correct the hydration, we correct the nutrition, and we maybe put them on Diamox. And the next morning, I'm thinking of one particular EverTrek, I was dancing a little jig the next day, and felt, like $1,000,000, and then didn't really experience any further symptoms of sickness. Headaches are normal. Feeling a bit dizzy if you stand up too quick is normal. But like in terms of like something that might stop you walking, totally gone. So it can change. But like everything, we monitor it as it goes along. If things don't start to improve, then and it gets to a point where there's only one fix for it, really, and that's to descend. But yes, just hopefully that's explained that it can be managed, it can be dealt with, and it doesn't necessarily mean the end of your trip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Sean, I noticed just a few of the comments that Ramona put. I know you're a good friend of Ramona's, and welcome to the lives. I believe it's your first one. And what Dave said is 100% right there. You try not to. One thing we always talk about, especially on the trip, and we can see has an effect is how you kind of think about it. And instead of always worrying about the altitude, thinking, oh my God, what about this symptom? What about this? What about this? Which is okay in the back of your mind. Is trying to think about all the other stuff, enjoying yourself, drinking enough water, having fun, going at a good pace, and try and limit that sort of anxious feelings around the altitude. Because if that's all you're worrying about, then it's one of those things, isn't it? If you're always thinking altitude, symptoms, it's highly likely that you're going to feel something, because that's all you're thinking. And I think we've seen it, both ways. People who probably should have told us a few things about the altitude when it comes to symptoms, sort of sooner in the trip rather than later. But it works really well, like in terms of, if you're someone that kind of worries about those symptoms, and you kind of put it to the back of your mind and you just crack on. And obviously, if you're really struggling, you've got really bad headaches, your vision's getting disrupted, then do tell your guide. You've got to lean on your guide. They're very experienced. Any symptoms you have, give them a nudge, and they'll be able to coach you through it. The first couple of days, some of the most common symptoms are you might lose your appetite. You might be like, I just don't fancy my food tonight, and I felt like that. But you need that fuel, so you've got to kind of force it down, and it's not the best, but it's part of the challenge. And then the higher up you go, you might get an all pressure headache because you've gone from 3,000 to 4,000 meters. And then you might get some sort of pressure at the back of your head, and then it'll go within an hour. Like I've got for instance, on the Everest Base Camp trek, you've got a village called Dingboche, and that's 4,410 meters. And I've got there once because for some reason that day it was like I was with we took a group from Just Eat up there back in September 2018, and we got there. We'd had a great day. It was beautiful weather. I think we'd probably gone a bit too fast, a bit too quick than we needed to, and loads of us got there, and you could see like almost like we're dropping like flies. Like even I had a headache in the back of my head. A few people weren't feeling well, but once you let your body adjust, and then I think 2 or 3 hours later we were all feeling fine. So sometimes you really got to pull yourself back and keep that nice slow walking pace, enjoy it, take many pictures as you can. And you'll be fine, Sean. Don't worry. Ramona's there anyway. She's done it before. She'll look after you.
Exactly. And then lots of people talking about Diamox now and things like that. Diamox is one of those things where, to be honest, I get all of my advice from the mountain guides and doctors. I ignore everybody else because everyone's got an opinion on it. Everyone feels that some people say take it in Kathmandu before you go. Other people say don't. It is an individual kind of thing. I think it's relatively safe. There are a few people that can't take it, so that's why you should speak to your doctor. The guides know best because their experience is better than anyone else's in the world when it comes to using this drug. I've used it on Kilimanjaro. Personally, I don't take it as what they call a prophylactic. I don't take it to prevent altitude sickness. I think the most important thing you can do for that is walk slow, drink plenty of water, and acclimatize properly. There's no cheat code for it. Diamox certainly won't, do that for you. But if I do start to acclimatize a bit poorly and I start to feel like not my usual self, low energy, like I did on Kili, I considered taking it, and then the next day I did. And I did half a pill in the morning, half a pill in the evening. And all it did was just give your body that little leg up that it needs in order to acclimatize properly. One thing to know, when your body acclimatizes, it's quite interesting. Like if you go to altitude and you stay there for about a month, your body will produce more red blood cells. So you'll carry more oxygen around your body. We're not there for a month. So your body kind of cheats. So what it does is it starts to dilute your blood to increase the ratio of red blood cells to everything else. So you start peeing a lot. And that's why we need to replace the water. If you take Diamox, it's like turbocharging that process. So if you take Diamox, you will be getting up in the night to go and have a pee, and you will need to put that water back in. So yeah, that's just something to be careful of. But you can bring your own prescription. Our guides always have it anyway. What's more important is if you do want to take it, you talk to your guide first and follow their advice. That's what I would say.
Nice, Dave. Loving the science today as well, Dave. I'm really liking this.
Loving the what, sorry?
I have to slip this up. The science. It's talking about scientific ways. I love it.
Yeah, it's like Bill Nye the Science Guy on here, isn't it?
Well done. Just going through a couple of questions because we've got a lot, and it's loads of questions today, guys. This is awesome.
Man, this is a beast. This is a beastie live. We might be here till like 2-3 in the afternoon. I'm gonna have to postpone my haircut.
We'll try and get through these, because we all know everyone's got lives, but we'll try and crack on as quickly as we can with doing the questions justice. Do you have a basic kit list for climbing to Mount Everest Base Camp? What tablets, medication will you need? This is from Simon Loach, by the way. So with Simon, just firstly, we do have a trekking equipment list. It's quite comprehensive. There's a lot in there. Fee, if you're on the live, if you can put the link to the guide in the comments, that'd be great. Then Simon, if you can grab that, it's got a lot in there, specifically around tablets. I mean, people take different things. I mean, in terms of what we recommend, I mean, some people take sort of painkillers, and whenever we're recommending this is just from experience. Now, obviously, you're all adults. In terms of what you're going to take, it's completely up to you. But we, for instance, we take some vitamin C tablets, painkillers. You've got aspirin. We've got like energy gels. Some basic plasters. First aid kit. Don't forget that the guides carry an emergency high altitude first aid kit anyway, so don't feel like you have to. But sometimes we recommend. People like to keep it, don't they?
Yeah.
In terms of altitude sickness, I think Dave mentioned around altitude. In terms of Diamox, the guides do carry them, but obviously if you want to take your own and you want to sort of proactively use Diamox on your trip, then do speak to your GP or travel clinic about that. They'll be able to sort of recommend what you need to do. Simon's also asked about how long does it take to get a visa. Yeah, it's a very apt question actually, because we've there's been a lot floating around. I think I've seen a couple of posts in the group, especially with as we get closer to the autumn, talking about Nepal now. Is that it can take a little bit of time if you're going through, say, getting your visa beforehand. Right now, Dave, correct me on this, because I know you've been obviously in touch with Nepal last week or so around it, because it's changing all the time with coronavirus.
Well, this morning, I spoke to Anuj over in Nepal. So no visas on arrival at the moment at all. Only for special sort of diplomatic visits can you get that. So you need to get a visa. Yeah, so you need to get a visa done beforehand. Personally, my advice to anyone going to Nepal would be to get it beforehand anyway, because both myself and Andy, on a number of occasions, have got the visa on arrival. It's fine, but it is 2 hours of queuing in a hot room after a long haul flight. So it's not the most fun you can have. But if you get your visa beforehand, you literally just walk through that visa hall, go and get your bag, and it's just it's well worth the effort. And it's very little effort. We sent off for our visas like on a Monday. They came back on a Thursday. You know, all done and dusted.
Yeah.
If you live near London or you fancy a trip when you can even go to the Nepalese embassy in Kensington, and you can walk in, get the visa, and be out in half an hour. So yeah, I personally think that it's well worth the effort. The visa on arrivals may change. There's some thought that it might change within the next week or two, but nothing's been confirmed. The way things work in Nepal is you don't often get like this is when this is going to happen. It's kind of all discussed, and it's a little bit, you don't know when it's going to happen, and then all of a sudden it'll happen. You'll just get notice that it's done. So
at the drop of a hat, at the drop of a trilby, as we like to say.
It should be a drop of a beanie, but you know, it's like a drop of a trilby.
Yeah, we don't see many trilby hats on the trek, but maybe we can change that. You know, you never know.
Yeah.
Another couple of questions. Dave, I'll take this one.
There's one from Georgina, and I think
that's exactly the one I was going to talk about. Nice. Yeah. Georgina Goff, who's I suffer from asthma. Will I find it too difficult to do the trek? Georgina, it's a great question actually, and I've been a fellow asthmatic myself, and we did an episode all around just purely asthma, which was called "Take My Breath Away." You know, we do like to have a play on words when it comes to these, and so definitely, I think I'll try and do it justice now, but I highly recommend you go back to that live or search on our YouTube channel. You'll be able to find that, because I talk a lot about about managing asthma at high altitude. But essentially, one thing I've kind of learned is that it doesn't really change, like the way you breathe the same. Obviously, you as an asthmatic, and you get out of breath, you've got to breathe more to get the oxygen for your body. But essentially, just make sure you've got the same medication you'd use, the same sea level. If it's something that triggers your asthma, for instance, if it's the cold, then we recommend wearing a buff. If it's like the dust, then maybe use an antihistamine, because it can be dusty on the trip. But if there's one thing I want to say, and that's what you said, will I find it too difficult to do the trek? Now, obviously, this comes down to you. But asthmatics have climbed Everest. They've myself, I've been to Everest Base Camp 5 times. Some to Kili. It comes down to you essentially. But there's a lot of asthmatics that like to trek at high altitude, and they're 100% fine. It's just how you manage it. Because it's okay. You might get a little bit out of breath, so okay, you want to take your inhaler and make sure you have that with you at all times, and you'll be fine. We always recommend that if you want to have a conversation with your GP or a health clinic, have a chat with them as well. But from myself, who had the same fears, was one of the things I had, years ago, before I even thought about going to Nepal, and before EverTrek was an idea. It was that I kind of had those fears. Can I go to altitude? Am I going to be all right with my asthma? Will it be too difficult? How will I deal with the cold? All these questions came in, and luckily, I was able to go through experience and work out that it was fine, and it was no more difficult really than how I experienced other stuff. There's another question I think someone asked around. I think it might have been Ken, around going to high altitude. And you're doing a marathon 4 days after getting back, which is brilliant. And does it help? Yes, it does. I did a half marathon a day after coming back from Everest Base Camp a couple of years back, and you know what? I found it a lot easier because I hardly trained for it, but I got through it. Your legs might be tired, but as Dave mentioned, we're talking science here. Your body does produce more red blood cells to get the oxygen around the body as quick as it can, and that does help when you're on a marathon or a half marathon. So a couple of questions, trying to answer that.
Awesome. Joel has said, actually, this might be a good switch live. We might do a what's in the bag session. Can you guys demonstrate? He's asking us to do this at another time. What future? Can you demonstrate what size backpacks we need and a future tune-in? Still unsure whether you need a 30, 32, or 36. Plus, maybe grab whatever we would pack in there. So I'll be honest, yes, I can absolutely do that. I've got about 7 backpacks, I can line them all up. To be honest, you're splitting hairs between 30, 32, 36. I would say, I've gone to base camp with twice, once with a 25 litre, one with a 26 litre, and then I've done it with a 35 litre. It all depends on sort of what you like to carry. Personally, I don't like to have anything bigger than, say, a 32 litre, because the bigger the bag, the more you tend to carry, so the heavier it tends to get. But I think either one of those bags would be fine. I always say the Osprey 30 litre Talon is probably the gold standard of like trekking rucksacks at the moment. And then from there on, you know, either side of that, I think anything less than 25 litres is probably too small. But yeah, I can definitely do that, mate. I can definitely get a load of rucksacks and show you which ones I use, and then, you know, show you what I carry in them. To be honest, if you've been trekking in the UK before, you already know what to carry. In mine, I've usually got waterproof jacket, spare base layer, snacks, water, beanie, gloves. That's pretty much it, you know. And then on extra cold days, like when you go to base camp or Kalapata, I'll either have my down jacket on or in the bag, with some other insulated stuff like, you know, warmer gloves, that type of thing. But yeah, mate, I'll absolutely do that. What's in the bag session for the future, definitely.
Don't Dave, I remember as well, we back in the early days of seems like an eternity, or back in, I think it was April or May last year, we did one live all around day packs. Yeah, we did. I know. Yeah, well, it was probably like almost our 50th one now. But yeah, don't forget, take a look at that, Joel, as well, because yeah, we can certainly do it again. But don't, you know, go back and have a look at that. You probably get some value out of that as well, because yeah, we can do it. We can do it numerous times. It's all good. But yeah, don't forget to check out that live. I think it was. I forgot the name of it now because it's that long ago. It's almost 12 months. But yeah, if you go back on the YouTube or even search in the Facebook page here, under, if you just go to the EverTrek, I think /lives, you can go through all the lives we've ever done, and then it's you can go back to one of the early ones, and it'll say sort of all about day packs.
Yeah.
Just if you want to see, if you want to wait until our next, you know, one of our next ones, then go for it. Yeah, check it out.
Exactly. Off the top of my head as well: sunglasses, sunscreen, lip balm, toilet paper.
Toilet paper is an important one, which actually kind of leads me on to another question we had come in, which we haven't been asked before. You know, I was trying to find a link here somewhere, but anyway, Martin messaged, and he says, "Hi, I'm looking to do Kili, awesome, but I have a colostomy bag, and as I'm in doubt, it's fit enough to do it. Basically, around it being biodegradable. Have you come across this before? How does it work?" And Dave, I know that this is a question that we haven't really asked before. We did a little bit of research before, and we can see people have summited Kili with a colostomy bag, right?
Yeah, so it can definitely be done. So in answer to your question, yes, you can do Kilimanjaro. There might be a few adjustments, you know, that we need to make, but essentially all of the waste on that's brought onto Kilimanjaro, you know, we collect and take back with us and dispose back, you know, at lower altitudes. So with the colostomy bag, you know, however you need to manage that and however you dispose of the waste and things like that, it's all sort of, there's a generalized bin and stuff like that you just put it in there and carry on. We always say as well about it not being biodegradable. Well, you know, where we can, we like to do that, you know, but you know, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go to Kilimanjaro, you know. So yes, 100% you can go. We also found that there are some sort of liners as well, which are biodegradable. So I think you actually line the bag with those, and then you can dispose of that without actually disposing of the bag. I'm not like a major expert, but just from the research that I've done, it's definitely achievable. It's a small problem that we can handle quite easily on the mountain. What I always say though is, you know, anything like that, any sort of adjustments that you're doing, anything that's slightly left of ordinary, just let the guides know so they're able to, you know, understand your situation and help you wherever they need to.
Yeah, nice, Dave.
Yeah,
I think. Go on, mate. Finish off.
No, yeah, I was just going to say, but yeah, you know, we're not in the business of saying no. You know, we've got lots of different people from all walks of life, all shapes, sizes, you know, ages, anything like that, where we can usually, you know, sort it out. But mate, get booked in, we can make it happen.
Yeah, nice, Dave. Yeah, it's one of those things, as we said there, if there's anything like that that's kind of different, yeah, we are, you know, we'll find a way. As Dave mentioned there, we can let the team know and we can manage that accordingly. You know, we've had some, you know, some people before who's trekked to Everest Base Camp with, you know, significant disabilities, and where it was, you know, very challenging because of the terrain. You know, we were able to get extra porters, maybe extra assistant guides, and you know, we can manage it. At the end of the day, if you really want to do it, and look, you know, I'm never going to be the person to say stop. You know, it's got to come down, got to come from you, because then when you'll have a tough time, you know, you dig in. Especially, I think a couple of the people we'd looked at who have climbed Killy with colostomy bag had done it for some like colitis charities, different charities, and you know what? That's in the back of your mind. You're doing it for charity. That might be that sort of encouragement sometimes that can make the difference between getting the summit and not. You know, and definitely there's a lot of experts out there that can help you with that. You know, in terms of I think Karen here, if you've got a stoma nurse, etc., you know, you can work out a way of making it happen, and we will 100%. You know, I'd love to help you on that journey, definitely.
Awesome. Another email here, email from Kevin. What is more of a challenge, EBC or Kilimanjaro? Do you know what? Get asked that question a lot. It's a little bit like apples and oranges to compare the two because they are very, very different experiences. If I was forced to give an answer, I would say Kilimanjaro is 8 days long. EBC is 11. So EBC is a little bit longer in terms of the days trekking. I would say that 7 out of the 8 days on Kilimanjaro are easier or the same as EBC.
Yeah.
Summit day is harder than any other day on EBC. So Summit day on Kilimanjaro is a lot tougher than any one day you get on the Everest Base Camp trip. So Everest Base Camp is an 11-day journey where it can be, you can have easier days and tougher days, easier days and tougher days. Kilimanjaro, it kind of all builds. It builds gradually, not too difficult, not too difficult, not too difficult. Oh, bit hard, not too difficult. Oh my God! and then you come down. I would say rather than thinking about which one sort of is more difficult, I would think about what type of experience you want, do a little bit of research, visit our website, YouTube, look at the videos, and get an idea for which one you want to sort of achieve experience-wise, and then go from there. Because they are, like I said, very different, but both amazing and life-changing.
Yeah, nice, Dave. Nice. It's a great question, that, isn't it? I love it when that one comes up because we thought the same, you know, which is we kind of we discuss it internally, don't we? Which one's harder? And it is all about that one day, really. You know, but what do both? Then you can tell us which one's harder.
Exactly. I think it's so much like you speak to different people, you get a different answer. I mean, but having said that, you know, I've just made it sound like Kilimanjaro every day bar one is easier. But then I've taken Diamox on Kilimanjaro and I've never taken Diamox on an EBC trip. So I don't know. You know, it's like it's so difficult to answer.
Yeah, they're always any trip to altitude is going to be challenging. Whether it's your first time or your 10th time, it's going to be, you know, because you've got to acclimatize the same process. Sometimes you can acclimatize not as well as other times, and that makes the trip more harder. And like Dave said, then that can give you kind of a disproportionate on is it really that harder because that happened to me instead of that didn't happen to me on that trip. But you know, they're both amazing trips in their own right, and whether you're standing at Everest Base Camp with all the history that happens there, you know, with surrounded by the highest mountains in the world, or you want to climb the highest mountain in Africa and get that summit picture. And watch the sunrise over Africa. I mean,
and your certificate.
And you get a certificate. Well, you get one of EverTrek as well.
Yeah, valid point.
So they're both fantastic trips, and you know, I think all of us have been, sort of locked down for so long now. I think let's make the most of it when we can, when this is over. And why not do both Everest Base Camp and Killy? Why not? I haven't done both. I love both trips almost a similar way, 100%.
Exactly. So, Kim, you've just asked a question as well about whether or not Toubkal's going to be going ahead in June. To be honest, at this stage, it's not a definite no, it's not a definite yes. We are in a situation where we need international travel from the UK to be relaxed. At the moment, we're still not in a position where we can travel today. That might be different by May once the roadmap to sort of exit lockdown has taken place. What I would say is that at the moment, I would hang fire for a month or two till we're in a period where we can definitely know what we're going to do. We can postpone your trip if that's what you need to do to any other date in the future. But drop me a message, you know, to the inbox. So email us in, and we can have a chat about that and work that out for you. No problem at all.
Yeah, nice, Dave. Yeah, just going through some of these questions again. I think Alan, hey Alan, hope you like your certificate and medal. You asked about what's the internet like in the Annapurna circuit trek. Yeah, one thing I've heard actually, because with Annapurna, it's kind of similar. I mean, in the Everest region, you get the Everest Link, which is the internet, and some lodges have their own sort of Wi-Fi off you know, a separate line essentially, which is pretty good for where you are. You know, I think they got it all the way up now to Gorekshep, which is crazy. Thinking about where you are, I don't think it's as good on from what I've heard on the Annapurna circuit. Just to sort of put that out there. So yeah, if you're looking to keep in touch, I mean, there might be on some lodges. Anywhere you go, really in Nepal, it's quite good. You can always get a local SIM to use in maybe purchase a local phone in Kathmandu, and you might be able to get some data, because even though there might not be Wi-Fi, there might be local phone signal which will have data, and that'll be in the Annapurna region. Yeah. And that goes for anywhere in Nepal. You know, we've seen some the porters. I didn't at the time because I was using the Wi-Fi, and then they were at. They had signal and they had data signal at Everest Base Camp, you know, which is mad. Yeah, there's some places further down where you're maybe a bit more in the valley and you can't get signal, and then you don't. But yeah, but I know what you mean. I mean, some people like to get away from it. Some people like to obviously keep in touch. But as Dave, you said before, it's nice to have the option.
Yeah, exactly.
If you need to get in touch with family, you know, let them know how you're getting on. And if that's the case as well, and you haven't got any data, just give our guides a shout. And they could sort that out for you, whether that's going via the office, just to make sure your family's okay.
Yeah.
You know, things like that, essentially.
Exactly. Elliot Byron, you have said,
yeah,
change your diet at all coming towards climbing Kili, such as would you prop yourself with high protein diets, or would you lose some weight to help with the long distance walking? To be honest, I wouldn't change your diet too much unless it needs to be changed. So if you're already fit and healthy and you're already doing relatively good amount of exercise, I would say keep doing what works for you. I've not personally changed my diet like too much. You know, when I'm training, I tend to try and eat a bit healthier anyway, and eat foods that support the training. So I wouldn't change it specifically for any one challenge. It's about what gets you in the best shape. And then when you're on the mountain, you get really good foods anyway. So they're able to provide you with like lots of fresh food and things like that. So to be honest, if your diet is not good at the moment, I would say yes, change it, because it'll support your training and get you in, you know, the best shape possible for Kili. If you're already relatively fit and healthy and you already do some training and you know what works for you, then stick to that, because you know it's going to be good for you going ahead, not to make too wild adjustments one way or the other.
Yeah, nice, Dave. Very nice. Katie's asked, Katie, nice to see you on the live. It's your mum Diane that usually asks the questions, but it's nice to have a question from you. I'll bring your question on as well, because you said with the treks, how do you balance out the pace if there is a difference in the fastest and slowest trek? It's a great question, actually. And sometimes, you know, it does depend on the group, but especially in Nepal, you know, Kili, say on any trip, really, just thinking about it, we do get, you know, we do have a head guide, and then we have assistant guides, and then we have porters. Now, normally the guides, the assistant guides are kind of managing the group, if you like. And naturally, you'll get people who are quick, and it doesn't matter what you tell them. Like slow down. You know, you're going to be suffering in you know, in a day or two. You know, you'll still get people who will, you know, who can't slow down, and you know, they'll go ahead. They know where they're going to stop, and that's fine. You know, that we've told them, we've tried to control that. But essentially, you know, we don't lose touch with people. You're going to be going to the same destination, but don't feel like you have to rush if other people are. You go at your own pace, you know, and especially you're going with family, you know, there'll be plenty of time to stop, have a drink. You know, we call it looky, sippy, sippy. So if you look at the views, why don't you drink at the same time, you know, with your water bottle, and that'll slow you down, you know, take pictures, just enjoy yourself. You know, these are fantastic places to be. So don't feel like you ever have to catch up with people. That's just not the case. And you know what? As you, like, for instance, we've seen this time and time again. If you get people that rush and then get to the destination an hour ahead of you, and they do that every day, I guarantee you they're going to be struggling when they get above 5,000 meters, and you
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And that's the important thing when it comes to altitude. So, yeah, I mean, naturally we like to go as the slowest person, But as I said in the beginning there, we do get people where we can't slow them down just because, you know, they maybe want to be a strong personality, they want to go up, and I'm okay, you know, we're all adults. But, you know, it's sometimes we do get that. But then other times we get fast people in the first couple of days, and I say, look, just today, can you go at the back?
Yeah.
Just take it easy, because otherwise you're going to be feeling some altitude issues in a couple of days. And those people have slowed down, and then they've come to me a couple of days later and gone, yeah, you were right. You know, I had a headache yesterday and now it's gone. And, you know, so now they know, okay, let's go at the slow and steady altitude pace.
Yeah.
So, Katie, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. My good friend John, who I believe is on here, he's been trying to ring me throughout this whole life. And I've been like secretly like cutting off his calls as he's been going. But I think he is on here. So say hello, John, if you're still here.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reason I've been cutting you off, John, is because yeah, my phone keeps vibrating and I'm like reaching for it. But yeah, John was actually one of those people like Andy, you've trekked with him before. Like he rushes everywhere. He rushes everywhere. It's like he's transporting an organ or something. You know, he's crazy. And we went to base camp, and he rushed up to Namche and got there pretty quick. And then on the acclimatization hike, he was still pretty quick. And then when we got to Dingboche, I've got a picture of him lying down on the bench, like, oh my head, you know. And he actually went back and did it a second time. And he said as well, I believe, that, you know, it's also about, you know, did you book to go to base camp to keep up with some random guy you'd never met before? Or did you go there to experience it and have an awesome time and see the views and meet the people and experience base camp for yourself? And if you did go to keep up with that random guy, cool. But most people have gone there for themselves to have the experience and make sure you enjoy it. You know, that's what it's all about. We want people to enjoy the trip. It's not an endurance sport. There is an Everest marathon if you do want to go quickly. So, you know, so it's possible we can sort of set that up. Nice. And also I remember one time I was climbing up a hill with my head down, going a bit fast, and a yak was coming the other way, and I hadn't noticed. And so normally
got to have seen that.
And then I looked up and the yak, I heard like the, you know, I was like, ah! You know, and I had to like dive out the way last minute. You know?
Brilliant. Nice. Very good, Dave. Honestly, I really want to see that yak. If that was filmed, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Julie, hey Julie, how do the toilet arrangements compare? I believe, just some notes. I think in terms of like EBC or Kili and things. Yeah, so in the Everest region, when you're stopping at the villages, you know, there's usually if a tea house or a lodge will have a toilet there. Some of them are sit down, some of them are squat toilets, some of them are very basic. And sometimes if you've got to go and we're in the middle of a woods, you've got to go. You know, you've got to sort of find a space and do what you got to do. With Kili, it's very similar, although one thing we've done, not a lot of teams do, but we found it's better, is that we actually carry our toilets. They're private toilets, so you don't really have to use the long drops. So for instance, in each camp on Kili, they'll have toilets that are built there and they're long drops. And, you know, they're probably a bit similar to some of the toilets you can see in Nepal you know, certain times. Very basic. You know, definitely use a hand sanitizer after you come out of that toilet. But whereas with us, we're on Kili, we thought it better just to have our own little toilets there. So depending on the size of the group, usually we'll have one for the males, one for the females, you know, and we'll keep it, you know, nice and clean, and it's just a bit better that way. So that's why it's a little bit different with Kili, because we got our own private toilets, whereas on Everest Base Camp, you're sharing it really with everyone. Obviously, is going there.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question there.
Awesome. Sue Denham, how are you doing, Sue? Hopefully you're okay. Do we have any female guides? So this is something we're actually in support of. There aren't many female guides at all, particularly for Everest and Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
In fact, I've only met one in my time on Everest Base Camp.
Excuse me.
But there are more coming up through the ranks. So generally speaking, you start out as a porter, and you're carrying heavy loads and things like that. And then after portering, you then do your training as a guide, and then you become like an assistant guide, and then you become a fully fledged mountain guide. So we are in full support of it. There just aren't that many that don't come through the ranks. But certainly on Kilimanjaro, we had a few female porters in our group, who I spoke to our guide about, and basically they're there to sort of build up the training and get the experience on the mountain. So, you know, it's something we hope to see a lot more of in the future. I think the tide is changing. It depends a little bit on the country you're visiting as well, and their cultures about whether or not it will or won't happen. But yeah, it's something we're in support of, and we really do hope that it'll be more in the future because they do a good job, particularly the porters on Kilimanjaro. I mean, I don't know how it happened. Like, I don't know how they do that. Like, they're carrying those loads and the tents on their heads and things like that. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, it is amazing, and I remember in Nepal, because it's unfortunately with Nepal, I think with their culture is, I'd say from experience, they are a little bit behind in terms of the way it is with women's and jobs and things like that. It is, I was quite surprised to find out that, and there's not many female guides, but then there are some that have climbed Everest, who do guide. Unfortunately, we don't have any of them that work for us at the moment, but it's certainly something that we would do 100%, in Nepal and anywhere on our trips. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, nice, Dave.
Awesome. Let's have a quick look now.
Man, sure.
This one could go on, couldn't it? And
that's okay. I think I want to kind of do it justice. There's a few more questions. I think one big question actually was, have you actually had your haircuts? No, not yet, Ramona. We haven't. Although Dave, tomorrow I hear is a big day, right?
Today, mate.
Today, yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah, like I haven't had my haircut. I haven't had my haircut for ages. Like, it needs to be done. It's a bit ridiculous at the minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So haircuts. Hopefully next Tuesday you'll see me with one. Andy actually cuts his own hair, so
can't you tell?
Yeah.
No, I'm being told cut your hair by many people. Don't you worry. So maybe over the next week or so, maybe next week it might be one all about the haircuts. You never know.
Yeah.
We'll see how we get on, but
Alice
trying to hang on to it before I lose it.
Alice McGuire said, when buying boots, is there a quick tip to distinguish between the boots that need some wearing in and the boots that are too uncomfortable and ones that, well, is there a quick tip between ones that need wearing in and ones don't? To be honest, no, not really, because the most comfortable pair of boots that required no wearing in were my all leather Maindel Boutons, where historically leather boots do require some wearing in. And then I've had some, sort of synthetic material boots and stuff like that just tore my feet to shreds. So to be honest, it's all about the fit. The fit is the most important thing. So go to a shop if you can, try them on, walk around in the shop with them, even if make the sales guy feel awkward while you do 10 minutes of laps around the shop, Yeah. And if you feel any pressure, any sort of rubbing or anything like that, probably not a good fit. So try a different boot. And when you find one that fits perfect, then generally wearing in shouldn't be a problem. I think the days of like buying these old school hiking boots that like chewed your feet to ribbons, but then they lasted 20 years are kind of over. They've kind of developed them now. So even the leather ones require less wearing in. I would start with the Maindel Bouton because that's my all-time #1 boot at the minute, and work your way out from there.
Nice, Dave. Nice. Right, a couple more questions before we finish up. Someone's asked, Will Anderson, what scramble grade would you say the lava wall is on Kili? I think you mean Barranco wall, but yeah, which is fantastic, and I gotta be honest, one of my probably my second favorite part of the trip after the summit. And yeah, it's a grade 1 scramble, so it's very easy. It's not technical. There were people on our trip just to, when we were on together back in sort of February, March last year, that hadn't really done any form of scrambling before, and they were fine. There's one small exposed bit called like Hugging or Kissing Rock, which is quite cool, but the guides are there to kind of coach you through it, and it will take a couple of hours to it's about 200 meters, 250 meters from top to bottom, and yeah, it's a very, very cool sort of place to, when you get to the top, and the views are absolutely amazing. I know you mentioned lava there. There is a separate one called Lava Tower, but that's not really, you don't go up there essentially. That's just like somewhere you see on the way. And it's part of the, I'd say it's next to the camp of where we stop. It's about 4,600 meters off the top of my head, Lava Tower. And then you drop down the valley then after you get to Lava Tower into Barranco Camp, which is next to Barranco Wall, just to hopefully provide some context into where you're going. But yeah, Barranco Wall in terms of scrambling is great. As I say, it's not technical, relatively easy. Yeah, Maindel, Maindel Bhutan, Dave. I can see that everyone's talking about Maindel Bhutan.
Yeah.
Dave, you've got shares in that company, right?
I mean, I've actually, yeah. If you scratch beneath Maindel Bhutan, it says painted Yeti supplies. But I've actually given Fee a link that she'll post on the comments from Cotswold,
Nice.
so you get the discount then with us if you use them. Also noticing I'm catching some flack at the moment. Captain America looking a bit iffy. I'll be honest, I never. That wasn't me that made that comparison. I'm Captain Newport, and iffy is my speciality. But yeah,
Very, very good. Very good. Nice. Well, yeah. Hopefully, we'll get that link. I'm just waiting for it to pop up. But yeah, pretty much. Even if you didn't have a link, go on to Coach Cotswold Outdoors. It's in. Never in doubt. Never in doubt, Fee. As I look through. But yeah, look, Dave, it's been great today talking about obviously the high passes. Going back to that, I know we've covered a lot of subjects today, a lot of questions. I think it's been probably one of our busiest lives that we've done in a while.
Yeah, I mean, if we've missed any, feel free to email them in.
Yes.
And we'll get back to you. There's so many here that I can't even scroll through. But yeah, it's been a great one, to be honest. I think whenever we talk about altitude and kit and stuff like that, we know it's going to be big. I've got a few ideas for some new. I think we're due a kit refresh. I think, and we haven't had a kit one in a while. So what's in the bag, I think, is a good one. So we'll do that.
Yeah, we can certainly do it. I mean, we've over the next few weeks. I mean, next week we'll be announcing kind of the winner of the Killy competition.
Yeah.
So do join us for that. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot about Killy and answering a lot of questions around that. But then after that, as lockdown eases, we're going to be trying to get a bit more creative. Although you've seen us, like this during lockdown, we want to get out. We love the outdoors. We're going to try and work out logistics and try and maybe do one in Cotswold Outdoors. Maybe go to the altitude centre. Try and maybe get some people on the tune in as well. So yeah, definitely. I mean, we love this part of the week, and even if Dave has a day off, he's still on. The same goes for me. I'll try and join as always. But yeah, maybe next time you see us with a new haircut. You never know. Dave, any final words, mate, before we chip off?
No, that's it. Yeah, I mean, excited to see where this takes us. Like post lockdown, because we started it in lockdown just so we could continue to talk and have people listen. I don't think we ever envisaged it would become so popular. So it's really humbling to think that all of you guys on a Tuesday make the same effort to come every week. Is amazing. And yeah, like Andy said, we've got some pretty grand ideas. We want to sort of, do some exciting stuff and get out and about and show you guys a lot more. So yeah, see what happens. We need lockdown gone.
See what happens. Nice. Okay, great stuff. Well, look, we'll catch you all next week. Or as always, anything in the interim, drop us a little message, info@evertrek.co.uk, or jump on the messenger on the website and just drop us a message. But other than that, we'll see you next week.
No worries. See ya.
Bye. Awesome.